إِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِعَبْدٍ خَيْرًا. You want to know whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you? There's a simple litmus test that you can perform at home. If Allah wishes good for a slave of His, قَذَفَ فِي قَلْبِهِ حُبَّ الْحُسَيْنِ وَحُبَّ زِيَارَتِهِ. That's why I've said this before. Others better than me have said it before. Maraja and ulama have said this before, and I'll say it again. Go back to your parents and kiss their feet and thank them for raising you with the love of Aba Abdullah in your heart. قَذَفَ فِي قَلْبِي حُبَّ الْحُسَيْنِ وَحُبَّ زِيَارَتِهِ. I don't know, honestly. I don't know what is it about you or this sinful slave that is me that Imam al-Hussein happens to love. Which is why he invited us all together, to commemorate him, to mention him, to offer condolences to his mother Fatima al-Zahra alayha salatu wassalam. You know how it's tradition in many cultures, in many communities around the world, where, I'm sure you've heard this before, they say that any gathering for the eulogizing of Imam al-Hussein is attended by Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. I haven't seen a hadith to that effect, but I have seen a hadith where a person by the name of Ja'far ibn Affan, he's a man who was a poet. Imam al-Sadiq is sitting down with a group of companions who are mostly from Kufa, min al-Kufiyin, from Iraq. So as the Imam is sitting down with them, this man, Ja'far ibn Affan, walks in. The Imam called out his name, Ya Ja'far. He said, Labbayk ruhi fidak. Allahu Akbar. I am at your beck and call. May my soul be ransomed for you. Tell me, what do I do? The Imam said to him, Ya Ja'far, إني سمعت أنك تقرأ الشعر على أبي عبد الله الحسين وتحسن ذلك. I've heard that you recite well for Imam al-Hussein, that you read poetry for Aba Abdullah, you eulogize him. Is that true? He said, yes, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, I do. The Imam said to him, would you recite a few verses of poetry? So he began reciting poetry. We have another hadith where the Imam said to him, stop, stop. He went and he put up a curtain to separate the men from the women, so the women could more comfortably cry and commemorate Abu Abdullah and his tragedy. He put him behind the curtain and they started reciting. There are so many ahadith like this, by the way, which describe the way the Imams of the AHLULBAYT used to commemorate the tragedy of Abu Abdullah. And there are so many valuable lessons in those hadiths. But this is only one of them. So Ja'far ibn Affan started reciting. فَبَكَى مَوْلَانَا الصَّادِقِ. The Imam cried. وَبَكِينَا. The narrator of the hadith says everyone who was in that gathering started crying for the Imam. Then when he finished, the Imam said to him, Ya Ja'far, Wallah laqad shahidat al-malaika majlisana hada. The angels attended this gathering. وَبَكُوا أَكْثَرْ مِمَّا بَكِينَا. And the angels cried more than we cried, because the angels recognized Hussein. The angels know who Hussein is. They cried more than we did. Then the Imam said to him, Ya Ja'far, Wallah, you have just secured your position in paradise with this recitation of yours. Then the Imam gave a golden rule that we can all apply. Again, going back to the point about holding gatherings and majalis in our homes. The Imam said, Man nashada baytan lil Hussein. If you so much as write one line of poetry, one verse for Hussein, if you so much as recite something that makes people cry for Hussein, وَبَكَى أَوْ أَبْكَى, if you cry or make other people cry, فَلَهُ الْجَنَّةِ, paradise is all but guaranteed for you. Allahu Akbar. The Imams of the AHLULBAYT would eulogize the master of martyrs. The Imams would cry. Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. I don't know, to be honest with you, the first night is usually one of the hardest nights, because you don't know where to begin from. You don't know whether you should talk about how for 34 years Al-Imam al-Sajjad cried for his father, Aba Abdullah. How for 34 years the Imam would walk in the marketplace, and if he ever saw a butcher about to slaughter a sheep, he would run to the butcher and say to him, did you quench the sheep's thirst or not? Before you slaughter it, did you feed it any water? So the butcher would say, Ya ibn Rasulullah, nahnu ma'ashir al-qassabin, we as butchers, we never slaughter a sheep without first giving it water. The Imam would then walk backwards until he would rest his back on the wall and say, Amma abi, as for my father, فَقَدْ ذَبَحُوهُ عَطْشَانًا كَمَا يُذْبَحُ الْكَبْشِ. My father was slaughtered the way a sheep is slaughtered. But you know the difference between him and your sheep is that they never gave him a drop of water. Imam Zayn al-Abidin, whenever he was offered any food, مَا كَانَ يَأْكُلْ, he wouldn't eat the food until it was mixed with his tears. If he was offered any drink, he would cry and cry and cry until the drink would attain the taste of his tears, to the point that he cried for 35 years. One day they say Fatima bint al-Hussein, maybe it was Sakina or one of the other daughters of Imam al-Hussein, because they were all named Fatima. She came to Abu Hamza Thumali. She said to him, Ya Abu Hamza, we're afraid for my brother. I'm afraid that he would die from crying, from the tears, the tragedy. Would you have a word with him? Would you speak to him? What should I tell him, my mistress? Abu Hamza said. She taught him what to say. Go tell him, Al-mawtu lana aada wa karamatuna min Allah ash-shahada. Death to us is a habit, and martyrdom is an honorific title that we receive from Allah. The Holy Prophet was martyred all the way to the 11th Imam. We're not new to martyrdom. Maybe you could tell him that, console him. We're afraid he would die. Abu Hamza Thumali went to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. He told him what he was taught. سيدي ابن رسول الله القتل لكم عادة وكرامتكم من الله الشهادة أما آن لحزنك أن ينقضي. Isn't it time that you stop crying for your father Abu Abdullah? What did Imam Zayn al-Abidin say? Allahu Akbar. One hadith says he told Abu Hamza, yes, you are right that being killed is a habit of ours, and it's an honor to be martyred in the way of Allah. ولكن يا أبا حمزة هل سمعت أذناك? Have you ever heard that prior to the day of Ashura, that our women would be taken as captives from one town to another town? That has never happened to us, Ya Aba Hamza. What are you talking about? Every time I see my aunts, every time I see my sisters, ذكرت فرارهن من خيمة إلى خيمة وَمِنْ خِبَاءٍ إِلَىٰ خِبَاءٍ. I would remember them running from one tent to another. Another hadith says that the Imam responded like this. He said to him, Ya Aba Hamza, Yaqub had 12 sons. وَفَقَدَ أَحَدَهُمْ. He lost one of his 12 sons. His son was missing. Yusuf was missing. He wasn't even dead. And yet he cried, حَتَّى بيضت عيناه من الحزن. He cried until he was blinded from the sadness. And yet رأيت 17 من إخوتي. I saw with my own eyes. What did I see? I saw 17 of my brothers and my uncles and my nephews and my father Aba Abdullah مجزرين كالأضاحي, lying on the sand of Karbala like sacrificial lambs. أيوا ويلاه ومصيبته. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.